Hello everyone! As you might be able to tell, I am not in the studio today. With a closure of all businesses that are deemed non-essential, I've been relegated to my lovely basement to produce these videos. Factor that in with my beautiful boot. Got a recipe for work from home. For the next 14 days or so, it seems that all non-essential businesses in Ontario will be not functioning, which means that for 14 days we'll be producing videos a little differently than usual. To all of those who were worried about me in the previous few videos, I am very sorry. I recorded a bunch of videos all at once because I could only make it to the office once that week after my injury, and I just kind of neglected to let you guys know why I was on crutches. So that's that, skateboarding injury. What can you do, right? I'm fine, happy, healthy, just not able to walk super well, but I'll be better soon. Without further ado, let's get to our video. Sequels get all the love, eh? It's easy to take a story and add a couple elements, keep a lot of the same stuff, and then slap a number 2 and maybe a subtitle on it. Some sequels are excellent and do a good job expanding on the universe from the original. Others, well, are just a little lazy. They barely coherent messes with 1 or 2 characters making a return. In horror movies, usually only the villain returns, but I digress. If you're really gutsy and want to continue to hype up a franchise, you can attempt the prequel. This is tricky, as you've got to consider all that happened in the original, and make sure that you don't make any decisions that fly in the face of those events. It's like time traveling and doing your damnedest not to step on a butterfly or punch a monkey, because great Scott, that could be the key to your great-great-great-grandfather getting laid. And then if that doesn't happen, you probably don't exist. If done well, prequels can provide fascinating origin stories, fill in gaps, and flesh out universes even more. And in horror movies, these are all opportunities to give the iconic characters from the now sequels new motivations and some extra bloody history. Hello horror heads, and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're counting down the top 5 scary horror movies that need a prequel. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more prehistoric horror. Wicked. Let's begin. Coasting its way in at number 5, we've got Near Dark. This is at the top of my list of cool vampire flicks. The classics are classic for a reason, and The Lost Boys does its best MTV in the 80s impression, but nothing can touch the sultry sundown action in this neo-western by Catherine Bigelow. Following Caleb as he falls for the cute little May and descends into vampirism in the sleepy Midwest towns is a blast. Roaming the land by night in an RV and gaining the trust of a vampire family, fighting an unhinged and hunky Bill Paxton, it's all-timer stuff. It would be great to explore the history of the family, though. The mobile home whipping coven of bloodsuckers has a fascinating history that's barely touched upon in the movie. First, we've got Severin, who claims to have started the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, and then we've got the father figure Jesse, who says he fought for the South some 150-odd years ago. Even the child vampire Homer has a backstory worth delving into. How did they all adjust to being roaming road warrior revenants? What other trouble have they gotten into in the past? All fantastic opportunities to delve deeper. You can even take a look at some of the rules for these vampires, as it seems that they play a bit of a different game than most. If Caleb and May can return to being human via blood transfusion, what does that mean for the vampire race at large? Could more vampires be cured? Would they want to be? Why hasn't this been addressed? And back to Bill Paxton's character, I think there is big potential in his origin story. The prequel could feature a young version of him as a sort of anti-hero. If he was around in the 1800s like he says he was, he would have had to have changed his style at some point to become the leather jacket and sunglasses sporting bad boy he is in Near Dark. What events forced him to become so radical? It's a gold mine here, people. Breezing in at number 4, we've got Hush. Okay, so odd choice, but hear me out. Pun intended. We've got the deaf woman, Maddie, alone in her cabin trying to write a book. But we've also got the masked killer, who's seemingly doing this at random, not knowing that Maddie's deaf until partway into the movie. Maddie's origin story wouldn't be all too interesting as a horror, as she lived a pretty violence-free life up until this fateful night. So we take a look at the ruthless killer himself. In Hush, he doesn't even have a name. So first order of business, give the man a title. Something to elaborate on the absolutely zero backstory provided in Hush. What's up with that anyway? He literally shows up in the middle of the woods to kill Maddie's friend and then only decides to kill Maddie once he realizes that she's deaf. What brings a man to the land of the hermits like that? Has he killed before? What's the purpose of his killing? Was he a normal person before a loved one died under horrible circumstances? Or maybe he lost his job and decided it was time to take up murder as a passion project. Whatever it is, there are a million different ways to provide this man with killer instinct and place him in the woods where deaf authors reside. Maybe he's already in the midst of a killing spree and is disposing of bodies, only to stumble across some new worthy victims. And then we can assume that the police find some evidence of this and have to untangle a wide web of woeful crimes after the fact. Maybe he even had an accomplice and they're on the way right now. Any possibilities? so little time. Sneaking in at number 3, we've got The Void. Lovecraft, practical effects, a cult of triangle-faced knife-wielding maniacs. The Void is a very fun movie. It opens pretty hot too. It's the graveyard shift at a backwoods hotel, and Deputy Sheriff Daniel brings in a wounded man. It doesn't take long to figure out that not all is well here, and some very strange discoveries are made. 1, the hospital is surrounded by ghostly cultists. 2, people inside the hospital are transforming into ungodly beings. 3, there was a farmhouse full of cosmic nonsense and blood. Oh baby. So as the ragtag group of survivors in the hospital struggle to get a handle on what's going on, more and more layers are revealed, like a big cosmic onion. One thing leads to another, and then Daniel is confronting a hell priest of sorts while also dealing with his grief head on. All wicked stuff, but how did we get here? We learn throughout the movie the origins of some of the weirdness happening, but I want to know more. How did Powell get a hold of all this cosmic stuff? And what happened in the barn? I want to see the inception of the cult. It's possible that these robed figures are not from the small town at all, but instead are the folks who convinced the grieving Powell to go along with their plan. There are a couple different paths that could be taken here. Either the cult, traveling Little America looking for the perfect person to put their plans into action, or all the events immediately preceding what we've seen in the movie. So we get the family who kills each other and then burns their house down, because they have a tale to tell for sure. This prequel could be made on the cheap too, considering the budget that The Void was made on. Creeping in at number 2, we've got Tourist Trap. In addition to having one of the most insane closing shots of all time, Tourist Trap also has the honor of being a criminally underrated slasher from the 70s. Full of the creepiest mannequins you can imagine, all complete with unearthly cackling and shiver-inducing mechanical movements, this is a true horror classic. And thanks to the classic classification, along with the fact that it's over 40 years old, I don't feel bad for spoiling anything, so spoilers be warned. So the teens in this flick make their way to a classic tourist trap full of historic figures run by the weird and bitter Slauson. Slauson claims to have a twin brother that lives in the adjacent house, and when the deaths start piling up, it's natural to assume that it's the fraternal fiend, running around wearing a half mannequin's head as a mask. However, plot twist, there is no twin brother. Slauson is just being a lunatic. He has telekinetic powers and is controlling all the mannequins remotely. He has them throw knives and grab people. Hell, he even brings his wife back from the dead in the form of an animated automaton. Talk about a control freak. At the end of it all, Molly makes kindling of Slauson and escapes with what's left of her friends. I want to know how Slauson got to be that way. Obviously, he takes his victims and turns them into attractions, but was this happening even at the height of his tourist trap's success? Was he using his powers to snag motorists left and right, populating his museum? I want to see a movie where Slauson discovers his powers and learns how to use them. Maybe his first kill was an accident, something done in a fit of passion or rage, turning him into a true killer in the process. Through this discovery, we could find out how his wife died and why he made her a mannequin. Maybe she was the first, and that's why he's so obsessed with it now. And finally, at number 1, Hellraiser. There is a lot that could be done with Frank prior to finding the puzzle box. In fact, and this might be controversial, but there could be a whole movie where we actually never see the Cenobites. A prequel to the very first Hellraiser could detail the life and times of everyone's favorite homewrecker, Frank Cotton. Show him heading out after the wedding and boinking his way across the world, being the sadistic, masochistic deviant that he is. He would move from place to place, meeting with different people and causing all sorts of damage before catching wind of the legendary puzzle box. Then, his direction would change. His life would revolve around the mystery of this BDSM artifact. Soon he'd be on the hunt for it, finding the bloody remnants of those who'd possessed it before. He'd meet all sorts of shady characters who had heard of what it could do or maybe seen it themselves. Desperate junkies, philandering playboys, merchants of death. It takes all types. Every time Frank comes across a new tale, he wants that puzzle box even more. He just doesn't know exactly what's in store for him. But we do, because we've seen Hellraiser. Hollywood, call me. I've got all these ideas and nobody to pitch them to. Prequels galore, get them while they're hot. What do you guys think? Would these prequels work? What horror lore do you want preemptively explained? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more herbaceous ones from the top 5 SCP monsters that can never escape, part 15. SS Titan Hunter says, did you know that Peppa Pig is 7 feet tall? Damn, Peppa, dunk on him. Rodney Kelly says SCP-3166. Could this be called Garfiend? I like the wordplay. Or it could be Gorefield. Or Lasagna Dead. Butters says, get well soon, Keegan. I'll do my best. There's not too many places for me to go and get further injured these days. Masamundate 1249 streams says, I love these videos. They made my birthday today. Happy birthday, or belated birthday, as I'm sure this won't be up for a few more days. Lendell Smanio says, I love the SCP community sometimes. What if monstrous Garfield, but only when it's not selling very well? It's a wild, wild world out there. I, for one, welcome the possibility of Garfield being successful forever. I just can't wait to see the non-jokes Jim Davis comes up with next. And Cosmo-kun says you should sign off with "Before I dance with the devil in the pale moonlight, be sure to," etc. Well, maybe I will. Maybe I will. And that's all the time we have for today. Before I dance with the devil in the pale moonlight, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more early eeriness. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.